Let's start in Busan as we await the start of the South Korea-ASEAN summit as the two sides mark 30 years of ties. Now, with the ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit set to begin very shortly indeed, President Moon Jae-in, as well as the leaders of ASEAN member states, are in the host city of Busan. So let's connect to our Lee Ji-yoon, who is standing by for us at the summit venue, Bexco. Ji-yoon, it does look like the world's media is filing in and the sideline events are about to start. So I'll leave the ASEAN-related news in your capable hands, and I guess I'll be seeing you later in the newscast.
Well, thanks, Mark. President Moon has already been sitting down with the leaders of 9 ASEAN member countries with hopes of boosting bilateral cooperation while promoting his new Southern policy. Starting us off with their ASEAN summit coverage this morning is our Kim Mo-kyun.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in kickstarted a string of summits with the leaders of ASEAN member states over the weekend with Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong and the Sultan of Brunei, Hassan al-Bolkiah. And on Sunday, he arrived in the host city of Busan to begin his official schedule. Until Thursday, President Moon will be holding separate talks with the leaders of 7 more ASEAN nations. His meeting with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen has been cancelled because the Cambodian leader's mother-in-law was said to be dealing with a critical health condition. On Monday, the first official day of the ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit, President Moon will sit down separately with Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. He will also take part in the ASEAN ROK Culture Innovation Summit and the CEO Summit together with hundreds of business leaders from around the world to discuss ways to expand cooperation. The following day, President Moon will meet with Myanmar State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi and Laos Prime Minister Thongloun Sisoulith. After that, he will deliver a joint press statement which will likely include pledges to strengthen Korea's strategic economic partnership with ASEAN countries. The South Korean leader will also participate in a banquet with the leaders of the countries along the Mekong River ahead of the first ever South Korea-Mekong summit set for the next day. After the South Korea-Mekong summit on Wednesday, President Moon will return to the capital Seoul for talks and dinner with Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc and wrap up a series of sit-downs with a meeting with Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir bin Mohamad on Thursday. The Blue House says the summits will provide a clear blueprint of South Korea's cooperation with the ASEAN countries in a wide range of areas, including agriculture, healthcare, culture, and trade. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News, Busan.
Now, Busan, the host city for the ASEAN Special Summit, is the first smart city in the world to apply innovative technology in its initial phase of development. President Moon Jae-in, attending its groundbreaking ceremony on Sunday, said South Korea will expand cooperation with ASEAN in the field. Our Park Ki-jun has more.
President Moon Jae-in said South Korea and Southeast Asia have the potential to jointly lead the global smart city industry. He made the remarks at a groundbreaking ceremony on Sunday for Busan Eco-Delta Smart City.
스마트 시티는 혁신적인 미래 기술과 신산업을 담아내는 새로운 플랫폼입니다. 여기에 아세안과 한국이 아시아 정신을 담아낸다면 세계 스마트 시티를 선도하게 될 것입니다. 그 첫 번째 성공 모델을 부산 에코델타 스마트 시티에서 시작할 수 있도록 관심과 협력을 당부드립니다.
Busan is a government-designated pilot smart city that's applying innovative technologies across the entire city. Through a smart water management system, the city will minimize water pollution while rainwater will be purified into clean drinking water. Robotics will be integrated to various areas, including delivery, parking, facility inspections, and patrols, making Busan the first city to apply robot services to the entire city. The city plans to receive residents at the end of 2021. This is the end product of South Korea's efforts to establish a sustainable city after experiencing how rapid urban development leads to issues like traffic congestion, security issues, and pollution. ASEAN cities are experiencing similar issues, and President Moon says the Busan model can be the answer to their problems. South Korea is already working on at least 20 smart city projects with Malaysia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand, and other Southeast Asian nations.
한국은 아세안의 도시들과 함께 하겠습니다. 부산 에코델타 스마트 시티의 건설과 운영 경험을 공유하며 아세안 도시들과 협업 체제를 구축하겠습니다.
And the president says the accumulated technology and experience will not stop at smart cities. Rather, the South Korean government will solve problems that pre-existing cities are facing, working to create a synergy effect where both can prosper altogether. Park Ki-jun, Arirang News, Busan.
South Korea says the ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit will be an opportunity for Seoul to further elevate its ties with Southeast Asia. Speaking on Sunday ahead of the official opening, Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa noted that during the 30-year partnership between Seoul and ASEAN, trade volume has jumped 20-fold, while personal exchanges have grown 40 times. She said the summit will provide the chance for in-depth discussions to further promote cooperation on various fronts, like infrastructure and smart cities. Kang also said it's an opportunity to further gain support from ASEAN for the peace drive on the Korean Peninsula, adding that a separate session on the matter has been arranged for the very first time. Separately, in a meeting with the Secretary General of ASEAN, Kang called for continued cooperation for Seoul's signature New Southern Policy. With abundant natural resources and a young labor force, Southeast Asian countries are emerging as major players in the global economy. Over the course of this week, we have special reports on the upcoming ASEAN-Korea Mekong Korea Summit in Busan. And today, we start with our Yoon Jung-min for a closer look at ASEAN nations' economic potential.
Southeast Asia is rising as a global leader with a fast-growing economy and enormous potential. First established in 1967 with 5 countries, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is currently made up of 10 Southeast Asian countries, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. It represents one of the world's largest economic blocs with a total population of over 652 million as of 2018. The total trade volume reached over $2.8 trillion in 2018, while the combined GDP amounted to more than $2.9 trillion, which is around 3% of total global GDP.
ASEAN is the third largest single economic bloc in Asia, following China and India. We call it a single bloc because the 10 countries have been integrating their economies. In fact, the 10 ASEAN countries share a free trade zone.
ASEAN possesses rich natural resources, including oil and natural gas, and young labor markets with about 60% of the population aged below 35. With its annual economic growth expected to reach 5% on average, experts say the region has a diverse economy based on the economic conditions of each country.
Based on the economic capacity of each country in the bloc, their key industries differ, from fourth industrial revolution technologies to labour-intensive industries. For example, Singapore and Malaysia have strong 5G, IT infrastructure and cutting-edge finance technology, while Vietnam has a competitive labour market.
Based on its vibrant economy and large consumer markets, ASEAN is expecting more cooperation within and outside the bloc for economic prosperity. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
On the eve of the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit, a special concert took place in the southern city of Changwon on Sunday to celebrate the opening of the 3-day event. Our Kim Da-mi has the highlights from the ASEAN Fantasia.
Around 150 drones lit up the sky of Changwon City, showing a message of harmony between Korea and Southeast Asia. The 6,000-seat Changwon Velodrome had sold out in just 1 minute and was packed with the first ladies of ASEAN countries and 3,000 multicultural families and migrant workers. Film before it, a Thai singer-songwriter mesmerized the audience with his sweet voice. All of his 3 concerts in Korea have sold out in the past. South Korea's Se So-nyeon also showed off her friendship with Film through a beautiful duet. Myanmar's Miss World contestant Warlene welcomed the audience in Korean, and Cambodia's best-loved singer Miss Sophia and Indonesia's Hollywood star Cinta Laura performed in their national languages. The artists and Modu Choir, composed of multicultural kids in Korea, performed the ASEAN campaign song Side by Side, representing unity between the Southeast Asian nations. K-pop stars like boy group NCT 127 also performed at the concert, as did K-pop legend BoA, who paved the way for the Korean wave better known as Hallyu. Boa sang her hit song Number One, hoping that all 10 ASEAN countries become number one friends. Psy also got the crowd dancing, performing his catchy global hit Gangnam Style. 김다미, Arirang News.
Now, Busan, the host city for the ASEAN meetings, has been welcoming the influx of summit participants to the city. But while they aren't working, what kind of experience can they expect in Busan? Our Choi Jung-yoon gives us a rundown on the must-see spots in one of Korea's best-loved cities.
Situated in the southeast corner of South Korea, Busan is a vibrant port city which also has plenty of places to relax and enjoy the seaside landscape. For a peaceful morning by the sea, visit Haedong Yonggung Temple, built more than 600 years ago. Greeted by a row of 12 zodiac animals, visitors can marvel at one of the country's only temples that overlooks the ocean, as most of the temples are up in the mountains. If you love walking along the sea, round off your day with some natural scenery and fresh sea air by trekking along Igide Park to Oryukdo Skywalk.
Built in an area between the East and South Seas, the Oryukdo Skywalk offers stunning views of 5 different islets. The 50-meter-long glass bridge also gives visitors the thrilling experiences of being able to walk 35 meters above the cliffs and crashing waves.
Gwanghwaneoli Beach rivals Haeundae in popularity, but has more of a relaxed city by the sea vibe with a view of Busan's landmark Gwanghwanedaegu Bridge. Just a 15-minute walk from the beach is Millak Raw Fish Market, where locals get the freshest and cheapest raw fish.
Fishermen bring fish directly from the sea and sell them here. With a simpler distribution process and running ocean water in their tank, the fish are cheap, chewy, and tasty.
It's no exaggeration to say some people come to Busan for the food alone. With local specialties abound, lively markets offer a chance to try some great street food. At Tinken Market, visitors can enjoy yubu pocket, a winter favorite with glass noodles and thinly sliced vegetables. You can also beat away the chills with Busan specialty omuk or fish cakes along with some spicy rice cake tteokbokki. As you bite into the siatotteok or seed pancake at the nearby beef square, pumpkin, sunflower, and sesame seeds covered in cinnamon sugar ooze out from the crispy dough.
We enjoy the street food very much. There's a lot of variety and every one of it is very delicious.
Nearby is Gukje Market with vintage clothing and traditional items, as well as Jagalchi Fish Market where you can try various types of grilled fish. As the sun goes down, the Bay 101 attracts tourists with its cafes and restaurants, which have unbelievable views of the skyscrapers across the water in Haeundae District. The perfect place to relax at the end of the day. Choi Jung-yoon, Arirang News, Busan.
And to tell us more about what we can expect from the 3-day event and how it will help to promote President Moon Jae-in's new Southern policy, Professor Kim Dong-yeop from Busan University of Foreign Studies joins me here in the studio today. Thanks for coming in.
It's great to be here.
All right, so considering that this is the biggest international conference that's been hosted under the Moon Jae-in administration, obviously there are many eyes on what would come out of these special summits here in Busan. So what can we expect in this regards?
I think that ever since our government announced the new Southern policy in 2017, I think until now we have tried to establish the visions, and I think it's a preparation period. But from this moment, I think this venue should be more concrete measures we should produce out of this special talk. And in addition, I guess one of the problems of our foreign policy toward the ASEAN was not very much sustainable. So I think in order to make our new foreign policy more sustainable, I think it should be institutionalized, the relationship between Korea and ASEAN countries.
All right. Well, what about North Korea? I mean, we know that North Korea has diplomatic relations with all of the 10 ASEAN nations. And obviously, President Moon Jae-in has invited North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to attend the summit, but North Korea declined, saying that Seoul hopefully understands the decision. So, but obviously the discussions on the ongoing peace process are going to take place here during the ASEAN summit. So what can we expect in this regard?
Well, regarding North Korea, I think we have tried so many things before. I think six-party talks and North Korea and US talk. But I think mostly those kind of effort was not successful. But we should move toward another measures to deal with these Korean Peninsula problems. I guess the ASEAN is a very good role to engage in these inter-Korean problems, because ASEAN is very strong in multilateral relationships. So we should ask ASEAN countries to make the more constructive involvement in Korean matters.
Well, now expectations are also rising over the first Mekong Korea Summit that's going to take place on Wednesday here in Busan. So obviously this is going to be an opportunity for South Korea to evaluate its 10 years of Mekong-Korea relations. So tell us more about this summit.
Well, I think this is very meaningful because the international relationship should be reciprocal and mutually beneficial. I think our country have a lot of trade surplus from ASEAN countries, and we have to respond their needs. And the Mekong countries, I think the ASEAN country has the biggest problem of the development gap in order to make the community, ASEAN communities. And our countries can contribute to solve their problems. Most of the Mekong countries, we call this CLMV, those countries mostly less developed countries. So we can share our development experience to those countries. So I think that will be a huge contribution for our country to ASEAN.
Now, overall, we know that President Moon Jae-in is meeting with the leaders of all of the ASEAN nations, leaders that are attending the summit in Busan. What can we expect from those bilateral meetings?
Well, bilateral meeting is very important because the ASEAN is, even though it's a community and it's one organizations, but it's loosely organized unity. So we have to make one by bilateral relations with each countries. I guess this summit we expect to make the FTA with Malaysia and Philippines. I think every individual countries we have to approach individually in order to make the relationship more concrete.
All right, let's hope for a good outcome from this summit. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much to our Lee Ji-yoon reporting from Mexico. We'll be talking a little bit more about the ASEAN summit taking place down there in the south of the country slightly later on in the newscast. But let's turn to some of the rest of the day's news now. And good news for commuters here in South Korea, because all high-speed KTX and commuter trains have been operating normally as of 9 a.m. on Monday, just over an hour ago, as the Korean Railway Workers Union and management have now reached a deal on a pay rise and increased recruitment, which is what the workers were asking for. The agreement comes after 2 days of marathon negotiations that stretched over the weekend, officially ending what was an indefinite strike that began last Wednesday. It's expected to take 1 or 2 days to get all nationwide services back to normal, though. Disruption to commuter services caused much inconvenience during the strike, where KTX bullet trains ran at below 70% of usual levels. The South Korean government is warning Japan against any attempt to spread wrong information on Seoul's decision to conditionally rethink the termination of their military info-sharing pact. Such remarks coming a matter of days after the South Korean government announced its U-turn, and that U-turn as well came just hours ahead of the deadline. Our Shin Se-min files this report from Busan.
South Korea is warning Japan to fairly report on a recent deal to temporarily extend the deadline of the military info-sharing pact known as GSOMIA. Baffled by a string of announcements and reports out of the Japanese government and media that run totally counter to the South Korean government's own words, South Korea's National Security Director Chung Eui-yong fought back hard on Sunday. He rejected the Japanese government's claim that South Korea admitted to faults in its exports monitoring controls and suggested putting its WTO complaint over Tokyo's trade curbs on hold to bring Japan back to dialogue. Countering Japanese media reports that said it was a perfectly winning game for Japan, Seoul's top security chief said it was actually a success for South Korean diplomacy, which was based on principles and tolerance. Chung added there would not have been any deal under the terms laid out by Japan and warned he would like to tell Japan to quote-unquote try me. He also accused Tokyo of making groundless claims and trying to provoke Seoul. He noted that during a meeting Saturday between their foreign ministers Kang Kyung-hwa and Toshimitsu Motegi, Japan's foreign ministry apologized for incorrect information issued by its finance ministry. As for remarks by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reportedly saying that Japan made no concessions regarding the deal, Chung said he seriously questions the conscience of such comments being uttered by a national leader. The top national security advisor added that should Tokyo's actions continue, their negotiations will quickly reach a critical point, hinting at the termination of the deal at any time. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Busan.
Now, South Korea, China and Japan met at the Tripartite Environment Ministers meeting in Kita-Kyushu, Japan over the weekend, where Seoul called on Tokyo to disclose the current status of the contaminated water caused by the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster. South Korea's Environment Minister Jo Myung-rae sat down on Sunday with his Japanese counterpart Shinjiro Koizumi and requested that there be transparency over how Tokyo was dealing with the situation. Jo also sat down with his Chinese counterpart for talks on the issue of fine dust. Now, just like the light beam swords or lightsabers, shall we say, that we see in science fiction movies, researchers here in South Korea have found a way to literally cut through thick metals using lasers. However, unlike those movies, the technology will be put to more mundane use, shall we say, helping in the dismantlement of nuclear power plants. So useful nonetheless. Park Se-young with more.
It's been 8 years since the Fukushima disaster in Japan, yet most facilities there have been left unattended. Due to the remaining radiation, it's difficult to dismantle the plant. But now Korean researchers have developed fiber optic laser technology to cut materials at nuclear power facilities.
The laser technology is advantageous for remote control and can reduce decommissioning waste disposal costs of secondary waste.
Dismantling nuclear power plants requires cutting down large facilities, removing radioactive contamination, and restoring the plants to their original environment. However, internal parts of the reactor are made of thick metal like stainless steel and carbon steel, which are difficult to cut and generate lots of secondary waste. The new technology can cut up to 100 millimeter thick metal underwater and is 4 times more efficient compared to existing technology.
Our technology is superior to the global technology standards. We can apply it to the dismantlement of domestic nuclear power plants and compete in the global market.
The study was published in 6 international journals in the field of lasers. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now in sports news, South Korean golfer Kim Se-young has won the final tournament of the LPGA season, receiving $1.5 million, and that's the biggest prize in the history of women's golf. On the last day of the CME Group Tour Championship held in Florida on Sunday local time, Kim made a 25-foot birdie putt on the final hole, closing with a 2-under 70. Tensions rose at the end of the round as English golfer Charlie Hull finished strongly, but Kim's birdie on the final hole gave her the dramatic victory by just one shot. It is Kim's third LPGA Tour title of the year and 10th of her career, which makes her only the fourth Korean female to have more than 10 LPGA titles. K-pop star Gu Hara, a former member of the girl group Kara, was found dead on Sunday at her home in southern Seoul, while police say they're looking into the exact cause of the 28-year-old's death. It's speculated she did commit suicide. This shocking incident comes less than 2 months after the death of her friend and K-pop star Sol Lee, who passed away at the age of 25, also in an apparent suicide. Gu debuted in 2008 as a member of Kara and built on her K-pop career as a solo artist, where she did very well. She also branched out into acting and reality TV shows.
Good morning. A cold wave advisory is in place for Seoul and surrounding regions. We are having a brief cold snap this morning. A sharp wind is making it feel colder than the actual temperatures, so dress warmly on your way out. Meanwhile, due to the easterly winds, Gangwon province is seeing a mix of rain and snow with up to 20 centimeters of heavy snowfall expected for Gangwon province with a heavy snow advisory, while other eastern regions including Jeju could see 5 to 50 millimeters of rainfall. Meanwhile, Busan, where the ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit takes place, will have much cooler temperatures today along with 5 millimeters of light rainfall. Busan will get up to 13 degrees this afternoon and cool temperatures will stay with us all day. The cold snap will ease tomorrow afternoon, but it's very likely lows will stay around freezing this week and highs will also not rise that much. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the globe.
Okay, so let's start our live coverage of the ASEAN Republic of Korea Commemorative Summit taking place in Busan. If you're just joining us, I'm Mark Broom. Welcome. We appreciate your viewership. Now, South Korea and ASEAN are marking 30 years of ties with this big event in South Korea's southern port city, with a combined population of more than 650 million people, a combined GDP of $3 trillion, and as well as that, it's South Korea's second biggest trading partner. So ASEAN's importance for South Korea really can't be overstated. So we hope that everything goes smoothly. So far, so good. First up on the schedule, the CEO Summit, which is about to get underway. We'll bring you a live feed of that once we get it. That's going to be followed by the ASEAN ROK Culture Innovation Summit, spreading the Korean wave around the world, and particularly to ASEAN, which is a huge consumer of it, is a big deal, of course, and can bring lots of money into the country. We will be bringing you that when we start getting live feed from the summit venue, which is Bexco in Busan. We have a team of reporters down there, and we'll be connecting with them regularly throughout the 3 days of the summit. In the meantime, I'm very happy to say that joining me in the studio as we are set to watch this morning's proceedings, we have An Junseong, adjunct professor at Yonsei University's Graduate School for International Studies. Thank you for joining us this morning, Professor. I'm also delighted to have our Kim Ji-on joining us, senior correspondent here at Arirang News. Ji-on, thank you for coming to provide your insights as well today.
Happy to help.
So we'll turn to Professor An in just a moment's time, but let's start with you, Ji-on. Tell us more about what we can expect in the coming hours. We have this CEO summit. We have Jim Rogers, the CEO of Beeland Enterprises, a very well-known face here in South Korea, as well as the Korea Innovative Summit.
Mm-hmm. Well, the CEO Summit, as you mentioned, is a significant event for business leaders held every 5 years on the occasion of the ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit. And it is, according to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, one of the largest business event attended by key business leaders. 500 business representatives, according to the ministry, is to attend this year to discuss mutual prosperity. And they say it's important because it provides business and heads of state the opportunity to come together and discuss the successes of the past 30 years of cooperation and plan for the next 3 decades. And among the Korean participants were leaders of Samsung, Hyundai, and SK, while their ASEAN counterparts are included in the representatives. So we can expect a lot of discussions to unfold during the event.
Yes, and we were just looking at live feed there from Bexco. It doesn't look like much is happening at the moment, but people are taking their seats, and as soon as we get something of interest coming out of that area, we'll be going straight over there. But in the meantime, Ji-on, just tell us more about this Culture Innovation Summit as well, because as I touched upon in the opening here, ASEAN is a particularly big consumer of everything related to the Korean wave. Of course, we're talking K-pop, Korean movies, Korean TV shows, as well as other content. This is also important as well because it drives interest in Korean culture and makes people in the ASEAN region want to come to South Korea on vacation and spend their money here. So give us a brief introduction about this cultural summit.
Right. It's a celebration of cultural contents as a driving force for future growth. It's held with the aim to promote cultural cooperation, as you mentioned, and common prosperity. And Hallyu, the Korean wave, is consolidating it into related businesses, such as what you mentioned, consumer products and tourism, which is a big thing in Korea, and have also benefited from this prominence. So to promote this co-prosperity in the cultural aspect, a summit is held as important as the CEO Summit among business enterprises and leaders for infrastructure and other sectors that touches upon people's livelihoods. This is about culture, people exchanges. And it is important because it is held at a time where ever-changing engines for growth and innovation is being brought by the fourth industrial revolution. And success stories of what you mentioned of K-pop, and other cultural contents, and they're expected to share their know-how and how to tap into this great potential of the market in the ASEAN region.
Yes, and the CEO of Big Hit Entertainment is going to be giving a speech during that as well, in case our viewers have been living under a rock for the past a year or so. Big Hit Entertainment is BTS's agency, so he's a real big figure in the world of Korean culture and the Korean wave.
Right, you're talking about Bang Seok, and he is the founder, CEO, and producer of Big Hit Entertainment, which was founded in 2005 and leads the innovation in the music industry. Its artists include global boy band BTS. heralded as the Beatles of the 21st century. My personal favorite, their favorite song is Fake Love. So we can expect a lot of players here to tap into the potential.
Well, hopefully we'll see some real love between the leaders of South Korea and ASEAN as we spread over the next few days. Let's bring in our expert, Professor Junseong. Tell us your thoughts then, Professor, about the significance of these summits we're about to see between Monday and Wednesday in Busan. What do you think? How significant are they?
Yes, the ASEAN is kind of, we have a not strong tie, but we have a long history of economic tie, like over 30 years. So this is 30 years, anniversary we're celebrating in Busan today. And just, that ASEAN is kind of growing, trading partner, and now it's like as of today, with number 2, the second biggest trading partner, and the first, travel destination for South Koreans, right? And also the fact that I think that the Moon Jae-in administration looking at the ASEAN is a new alternative for the international, foreign relations and politics in terms of like many issues, like including North Korean issue. For example, as we discussed, like there's ASEAN 10 members have a diplomatic tie, relations with North Korea. I guess that's one of the reasons I think President Moon Jae-in invited Kim Jong-un to Busan, because they have a good working relationship with North Korea. So I guess that's one of the breakthrough that using the ASEAN as the tool to break some obstacles to the foreign relations, right, as of today. Right?
Yeah, let's we'll delve a little deeper into how North Korea plays into this in just a moment's time. But in regards to this being the 30th anniversary of ties between South Korea and ASEAN, where do you think the relationship stands today? Because everyone has been hailing it as a very strong partnership over the days leading into this summit.
Yes, I think that you see that the Moon Jae-in administration have a new southern policy, like people call it 2.0, right, upgraded version, right? I think they're working on it from since November 2017. It's been about 2 years, and try to see what happened and what kind of result we can expect today. And I think that one of the ways it's like we try to diversify, our foreign relations, because we heavily, kind of rely on our former allies, including U.S. and then some other countries, superpowers, Russia and China. And in some way, they can play an important role in the future, and not only economic way, also the international politics and international relations, how we can balance our situation, and then solve some problem with the multilateral way.
Yeah, well, you raised some good points there, that this is an extremely important relationship that South Korea has, and hopefully the next few days will cement that, and further down the line the relationship can become even stronger, particularly when there's so much uncertainty going on around the world right now. It would be good to have strong economic partners that can be trusted while we have this trade spat between Seoul and Tokyo at the moment that continues to bubble away, as well as the US-China trade war, which hopefully will see some solution happening before too long. So we are awaiting the start of this CEO summit. As of yet, they have yet to come out onto the stage. But while we wait, why don't we take a look at a report to give you more information rather than us talking to you. Let's take a look at this, because the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, better known as ASEAN, is already an important partner for South Korea in many sectors, as we've been talking about, including business and culture. And we're going to take a look at the second part of a series on these upcoming ASEAN summits in Busan. Our Yoon Jong-min takes a closer look at how both South Korea and ASEAN, both of them, benefit from these strong ties.
Southeast Asia is one of South Korea's closest neighbors geographically, economically, and socially. The two first established a partial partnership in 1989 and upgraded it to a full dialogue partnership in 1991, and now ASEAN is South Korea's second largest trading partner and third largest investment market. As of 2018, the trade volume between South Korea and ASEAN reached over $159 billion. Exports from Korea to ASEAN amounted to around $100 billion, while imports from ASEAN to Korea were more than $59 billion. Seoul is bolstering its ties with a broader regional bloc as well. In early November, South Korea, ASEAN, and other key partners, including China, Japan, and Australia, reached an agreement in Bangkok over the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership.
At a critical time when protectionism is threatening the global economy, we agreed on the significance of the free, open, and rule-based RCEP more than at any other time.
Experts stress the importance of diversifying partners, especially with ASEAN amid growing global uncertainties.
Under the U.S.-China intensified competition, and also we are facing the Korea-Japan trade disputes. Under those circumstances, we need to alternative production site and production. So we need ASEAN as the main partner for that.
The two sides have been also expanding cultural ties. For more exchanges, the ASEAN Korea Center was established in Seoul in 2009, and the ASEAN Culture House opened in Busan in 2017. In 2018, nearly 9 million South Koreans visited ASEAN countries, as Southeast Asia is a popular tourist destination for Koreans. Going the other way, more than 2 million people from ASEAN visited Korea last year.
And we are emphasizing the importance of people-to-people exchange and heart-to-heart exchanges. In that regard, K-pop and K-drama, K-food, and even K-beauty are popular in ASEAN countries.
Some experts also point out the possibility of three-way cooperation by South Korea, North Korea, and ASEAN in the future, as Pyongyang has been also maintaining its partnership with ASEAN. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
So we are about to go over to the CEO summit that's taking place in Mexico, down there in Busan. We're going to hear the keynote speech, keynote address, congratulatory remarks from the head of ASEAN, as well as some opening remarks from the chairman of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry. After that, we have a whole host of events lined up. So, Jian, just talk us through a bit more about the schedule of what we can expect from this ASEAN ROK CEO summit.
Right, the opening ceremony is to be followed by the three-part panel sessions that are to be with presentations and discussions with business representatives from two sides, from South Korea and the ASEAN region. And session one is to engage in the changes in the global trade environment and ASEAN's role in it. And the special speech is to be given by Indonesian President Joko Widodo, and also followed by James Rogers, chairman of Elan Enterprise, who is also the bestseller of Investment Biker. The session two is to be followed by a special speech of Malaysian Prime Minister, as well as the head of mobility at Hyundai Motor Company, under the theme of how to cooperate in new industries for innovative growth. They're going to be talking about the trends in the automobile sector and an introduction to the Hyundai Motor business and future prospects in the field to expand.
Right, well, this will be a bunch of lectures. We can see, looking at the pictures there, that the movers and shakers of the business world, not only from South Korea but from Southeast Asia, are there. It's also a wonderful networking opportunity for them as well, to get to know each other and really have a meaningful discussion about their visions and policies and what they'd like to see happen in regards to the business relationships between the two sides, which are continuing to grow year by year by year. We're hearing a 20-fold increase in trade between the two sides in the 30 years since ASEAN and South Korea became such close partners. Perhaps that speaks to how much the economies of South Korea and many ASEAN countries have grown over the years. Professor An Junseong, bringing you back into the conversation, how do you see the business and trade ties between South Korea and ASEAN right now? And do you see there being much more room to grow? Can you see such exponential growth that we've seen over the past 3 decades happening over the decades to come?
Yeah, I think that you can look at 2 different ways. One is you see ASEAN as a bloc, and the other one is you go one by one. It's 10 member countries because they're all different, interests and different situations. And if you see ASEAN as a bloc, it's still a potential there. And as you explained, that maybe there could be potential, possibility there because that you don't have much. You have much more possibility to do many areas. For example, like if you see Singapore, like bilateral talk, which was in November 23rd, and they talked with Singaporean Prime Minister, and they sign 3 MOUs, right? Very interesting. The first one was the smart city, and second one was the cyber security, and the last one was the biomedicine. And you see that for example, like smart city, and also now they're having smart city fair from today for 3 days, right? So it seems like this time is one of the themes is the smart city, it's cooperation between South Korea and the ASEAN member countries. And also, if you look at Singapore's situation, Singapore is the first Asian country to sign FTA, right?
Yeah.
And then although the geographical there's some kind of distance from ASEAN member countries, but there is a growing traffic is coming, right? I see that the second largest, trading partner. Also, you see that the Brunei had 3 MOU as well. The first one was the same thing, smart city, and second one is the e-government, and third one is the ICT. So I see that the practical, some achievement from between the bilateral talks and what kind of MOU they signed between the summit parties.
Yeah, we actually heard from President Moon on the eve of this summit talking about how he wants South Korea and Southeast Asia to be the pioneers of the smart city market as well. And we are looking at live coverage of President Moon Jae-in making his way into the 2019 ASEAN ROK CEO Summit. He'll be taking his seat shortly. He is the man behind the new Southern policy. He announced this a couple of years ago back in Indonesia, which of course is one of the biggest economies in the whole of ASEAN, with perhaps even the largest population as well. ASEAN is a region, we must point out, with a huge relatively untapped youth population. So if we are going to listen to what they are going to say, let's just take a brief listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the opening ceremony of the 2019 ASEAN ROK CEO Summit, being held under the theme Collaboration and Tasks Towards ASEAN ROK Co-Prosperity. We provide a simultaneous interpretation in Korean, English, Thai, and Lao, so please use the receivers placed on your tables.
자, 먼저 대한상공회의소 박용만 회장의 개회사가 있겠습니다. 여러분 박수로 환영해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable President Moon Jae-in,
Prime Ministers, and distinguished guests. Welcome all to the Korea-ASEAN CEO Summit. In just 5 years, it's great to see you again here in Busan. We have about 700 businessmen who are participating in today's summit, and thank you very much for your increased attention and support. And today's summit has been stationed itself as a representative summit for the business leaders of Korea and ASEAN. I would like to thank you once again. I have been visiting ASEAN countries with the business leaders and delegations from Korea. And a lot of the countries, we can see that we are producing new records of our new exchanges in all areas of businesses, including personnel and exchange and trade. And moreover, it's also very great to see that the exchanges of the leaders are also very high. In Korea, we have the New Southern Policy, and I believe that this has paved the way for increased exchange between our countries. And the ties between Korea and ASEAN is also very high at this moment, and we also expect to see heightened trade volume in the future. And against this backdrop, I believe that the Korea-ASEAN Summit and the first Korea-Mekong Summit could actually work as great platforms. And we aimed to build regional industrial complexes, work on ODA, and we hope to see great progresses made. And in the beginning of this month, we signed the RCEP, and we believe that this is a very significant approach. And we hope and we ask for your interest and support so that this could be in effect as soon as possible. And I also ask you to discover new regional partners so that we can prepare ourselves against the backdrop of uncertainties, increasing uncertainties globally. And I believe that these changes and transformations would actually give us greater opportunities going forward. And the Korea-ASEAN Business Council and other private level consultations would also be carried out in the future, and this would help enhance us to go into the value chain of the ASEAN countries. Distinguished members of the business sector, I know and I have heard from many leaders that they are going through difficulties against today's backdrop of growing uncertainties. However, I believe ASEAN is a region that is shining despite such difficulties. And I believe that further cooperation between Korea and ASEAN can bring about future co-prosperity. Thank you very much.
네, 박용만 회장님 감사합니다. 자, 다음은 대한민국 문재인 대통령께서 기조 연설을 하시겠습니다.
Next, President Moon Jae-in will give his keynote address. Please give him a big hand.
존경하는 아세안 정상 여러분.
Distinguished leaders of ASEAN member states, leaders of the business sector, welcome all to the Korea's largest port city of Busan. Today we are gathered with the CEOs of ASEAN and Korea under the theme of prosperity for all. I'm greatly honored to be addressing you with the Korea-ASEAN Economic Cooperation Vision. East Asia's ocean has become a channel to connect the livelihoods and the civilizations of all eras. And we have ushered in a new era of trade. The merchants of Java and Ayutthaya and Majapahit have all passed through China to Korea through the sea channels. And the merchants in East Asia in the late 17th century have expanded trade, and we have now become the leaders of marine trade. And such centuries of histories of exchange is once again placing East Asia at the center of global economy. 30 years ago, Korea and ASEAN established our dialogue relations. 12 years ago, Korea-ASEAN FTA has came into effect. They are results of living exchanges of East Asia. Just like the merchants have established marine kingdoms, businessmen who are working transborder are actually the leaders of Asia and the world economy. We have agreed on the RCEP agreement, and we have ushering in a new era of East Asia trade network. And I am very delighted to be addressing you here in Busan, which is connecting the continents with the seas. Distinguished leaders of the business sectors, ASEAN and Korea's economies are becoming even more closer. Our trade volume has topped $160 billion, and our mutual investment it also tops $10 billion. ASEAN is Korea's second top trade partner and our third largest investment destination. And to ASEAN, Korea is the fifth largest trading partner, including Brunei's largest Temprong Bridge and Vietnam's first LNG terminal, as well as many industries in Indonesia are also being supported by Korea's Daelim Industry, Samsung, CNT, Lotte Chemical, and POSCO. And we are also expanding levels of exchanges with Singapore and Myanmar in various areas, including biomedicals and IT. The scope of exchange among governments are also exchanging. We are covering the areas of diplomacy, trade, commerce, investment, and we're expanding this into infrastructure, culture, defense, and investment. And Korea will become ASEAN's friend, and beyond friend, we will become a community who grow together. Koreans love the food and the sceneries of ASEAN, while ASEAN people love our Korean wave. And we have direct flights that range up to 1,200 weekly. And ASEAN, which has a population of 650 million, has abundant natural resources and has a high level of economic growth of 5% annually. Korea has become now one of the strong powers of IT, and we have the know-hows in various areas, including 5G and smart mobile technologies. And historically and culturally, Korea resembles ASEAN a lot. And we have great room for growth. And the young population of ASEAN is also a great partner for Korea. When we go hand in hand, we can achieve the co-prosperity community in a faster pace. We also exchange the spirit of Asia. We value our nature, and we value the diverse religions, races, and culture, and we have the solution to work towards a more inclusive and sustainable world. We will always be together with ASEAN in making a new global order. Distinguished leaders of the business sectors, today I propose 3 aspects to make a co-prosperity community. First is people-centered, inclusive community. People are the new growth engine of the growth. In order to enhance the capacity of SMEs, which account to 99% of ASEAN's economy, we will expand the training and vocational education. And working closely with Vietnam's Science and Technology Research Institute and Myanmar's Development Institute, we will share our know-hows. Semaul Movement's confidence will move into the miracles on the Mekong River, and we will also strengthen our cooperation. Second is the cooperation for co-prosperity and innovative growth. We will expand the scope and the platform of technological cooperation and trade so that we can enhance our competitiveness in the coming Fourth Industrial Revolution era. The startup cooperation between our countries will become the leading forces that lead the Fourth Industrial Revolution era. The new Southern Business Cooperation Center, which will be established next year, will actually promote more Korean companies to enter into ASEAN markets. And the RCEP agreements, as well as Korea-Indonesia CEPA, we will also work towards establishing bilateral FTA networks with Malaysia, Philippines, and Cambodia. Third is a cooperation to heighten connectivity. Connectivity enhancement is a hot topic in ASEAN. We would like to exchange and utilize our strength in the areas of transportation, energy, and smart city to help ASEAN to build its infrastructures. Taking the GICC, we will also seek great modes of cooperation that meet the demands of ASEAN. We will also enhance the funds for cooperation with Mekong. The cooperation fund with Mekong has been increased twofold to $14 million, and the Korea-Mekong Cooperation Fund will be expanded to $3 million by next year. Korean Peninsula is a platform of peace for East Asia, and we hope that we can continue with the inclusiveness spirit of ASEAN. And going forward, we hope that we can overcome the challenges ahead of us, including the third North Korea-US summit, and we can truly become a single community. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen and business leaders, Busan was home to many refugees. It was a city of true inclusion. During the Korean War, many people from ASEAN and many countries from ASEAN also sent people and sent a lot of help. They were also the neighbors of Busan. ASEAN is truly our new friend and our destiny community, and we will always be stand by you. Asia is the future of the world. Taking this opportunity, I hope that we can deepen our friendship and share more sense of duty. We hope to see that we can make a co-prosperity future together. Once again, thank you for joining us here in Busan. Thank you very much once again. Thank you. Thank you very much, President Moon Jae-in. Please give him another big hand.
Okay, we just heard from President Moon Jae-in speaking at the summit there in Busan. He spoke for about 10 minutes. I'll give you a brief summary if you are just tuning in. He said South Korea and ASEAN have ushered in a new era of trade in relation to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He spoke of the long history of trade relations between Korea and ASEAN that stretches back centuries, he said. He talked about South Korean companies investing heavily in ASEAN, two-way tourism. As we know, Southeast Asia is a massive tourist honeypot, shall we say, for South Korean tourists who love to go to have a vacation in Southeast Asia. He also touted South Korea's expertise when it comes to 5G. I'm sure the CEOs of South Korea's telecommunications companies were listening to that and hoping they can sign some lucrative contracts over the next few days in Busan. We have our Kim Ji-yeon, senior correspondent here at Arirang News, who's just been listening to President Moon's speech as well. Ji-yeon, anything particularly jump out of you for you from President Moon's speech?
What I got is his keyword on co-prosperity. One side should not benefit, but both sides should benefit from his new Southern policy, which is aimed at lessening South Korea's reliance from its traditional trading partners like China and the US, and he pointed out the ASEAN region. And there is no other country in the world like Korea that have held 3 summits inviting the leaders of the ASEAN countries to promote co-prosperity and cooperation in various fields. And this gives confidence to CEOs, to business leaders, and to anyone who wants to invest in the ASEAN region and who wants to build cooperation in Korea. So it's a win-win. I think it's a win-win to have this kind of summit in Busan, a beautiful resort city that has many significance to the ASEAN region and to South Koreans, as you mentioned, a beautiful resort area. Is very significant, and his view highlights a new global order in which Asia is the center once again, and that we should cooperate. We could go hand in hand with each other with the spirit of Asia. He mentioned how we value nature, how we value various religious and cultures, how we have a lot of similarities, so we can tap into those similarities and commonalities. And it was he went right into that.
Well, you can see why this is his signature policy, really. His new Southern policy. He wants to focus on building up relations with ASEAN to reduce South Korea's reliance in terms of exports when it comes to the US and China. Professor An, what was your takeaway from what we heard from President Moon there?
Yeah, I think that he mentioned that greater cooperation to upgrade the relations. I see that the ASEAN is that we shouldn't limit the scope of the ASEAN to ASEAN itself. I think we have expanded. So his new Southern policy means that expansion of his foreign policy beyond the ASEAN, such as the, for example, North Korean issue. I think they talk about the issue here that perhaps we can have a special summit in Pyongyang, maybe next one, with the South Korea and North Korean leaders get together and with ASEAN. And it's really, I think that's a good point about that 10 members are having good working relation with North Korea. I think that's the great start to discuss it. I think that the Moon Jae-in administration tried to invite Kim Jong-un to Busan, but it didn't work out. But I guess perhaps they should have think out of box, maybe have some meeting at the Gyeongang Mountain or the GSOMIA industrial zone. Maybe might be a kind of a
Well, let's touch a bit more on that before we get over to the Culture Innovation Summit, Professor, because as you touched upon, South Korea did invite North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to come along to this summit. Most people expected the answer to be a negative one, which it turned out to be. Where did you stand on a personal note with South Korea inviting Kim in the first place, considering that he was so likely to snub it anyway? Do you think it was just a fact, more of a gesture more than anything?
I think that's a good political gesture at the beginning, starter. Also, I think that's sending a good message to North Korea, also to U.S. government. Right? I think that the main reason he didn't show up is that Donald Trump didn't show up. Right. Basically, I mean, I'm sorry. If they both come, that's great news. But however, if both show up, the significance of ASEAN-Korean meeting is might be, this dark side, right?
Well, I'm sure if President Trump came to Busan,
right? That's, so kind of the balance issue, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that they try to see how to balance it, and then the North Korean issue would be the big issue, and then also they have. I think the point that all members have good relation with North Korea is I think good start. Also, the North Korean, the Kim Jong-un didn't show up because that he said that there's no reason to go, basically, right? I agree, because that he was expecting, Donald Trump, not ASEAN members, because he couldn't meet with any person if they wanted, because they have good relations. Right?
And quickly tying this back into ASEAN. the two North Korea-US summits were held in ASEAN countries, the first one in Singapore, the second one in Vietnam. What kind of contributions, quickly, Professor, before we go over to the Culture Summit, what kind of contributions can ASEAN make in the process, this long and grinding process in regards to North Korea's denuclearization? And then Jion, as the Defense Ministry correspondent, will bring you your views in on that too as well.
Yeah, as I mentioned it, like both ASEAN country has hosted the two North Korea and US summit. I think that's a good point because there could be mutual value for both sides because both sides like to go there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to go there to Washington D.C. or you don't want to go Seoul because too political somehow, right?
Yeah.
So there could be very neutral and safe and also they have good relations. Both sides have good relations, right? I think that's the good point about how they get it. And then North Korea, right? That's that's what trying to do, right?
Yeah, and there is a lot of talk that there's going to be a third North Korea-US summit coming up as well, Jion. That's the speculation that President Trump and Kim Jong-un are eager to make something happen. The likelihood is perhaps that it would be held in ASEAN. So in your position as a Defense Ministry correspondent, you talk about the relationship between North Korea, the US all the time. How do you think this is going to play out? And do you think there's a possibility that if this third summit that's been touted quite a lot in the media goes ahead, that it will also be held in an ASEAN nation?
Those are one of the many speculations that the media is citing diplomats, circles that are familiar with it, but it's really too early to say because there's a lot of variants that are playing out under the surface that we are not privy to. And I think you mentioned that the two last summits between between President Trump and Kim Jong-un were held in the ASEAN regions, and I think that's because they're central, how they're not leaning toward the Western powers, and their middle ground keeps them a significant symbolic place to hold a whole denuclearization summits, because it doesn't look bad for President Trump and it doesn't look bad for Kim Jong-un either, because one country, if it was held somewhere else in the Western power, it might be a undermining factor for Kim Jong-un that he's going under, right? Yeah. So in terms of geography and their political affiliation, which is no political affiliation, but in terms of Singapore, you need high-level security to have both leaders to come into one place.
Absolutely, and plus we have to remember the geographical significance of ASEAN in regards to North Korea. They don't have the technological ability to get too far. There have been talks about perhaps going to Mar-a-Lago, Trump's.
So I wouldn't be surprised if another summit is being held in the ASEAN region.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of candidates, aren't there, Professor Ann? Don't you think so, for a third North Korea-US summit, were it to happen in one of the ASEAN countries, or perhaps even going back to Singapore or Vietnam again?
Yeah, possibly. Actually, in terms of Singapore, I think this is very good venue for Kim Jong-un as well, because that Kim Jong-un see as Singapore, Singapore is one of the non-hostile developed country, and second also Singapore is very unique situation because they have a rapid, economic development while maintaining their one-party regime, right? So they're sending a big signal to North Korean, Kim Jong-un, saying, "Oh, maybe can benchmark how success of their Singaporean government." That's a good point. Also, Vietnam is also they still maintaining the communist system, but still have rapid economic development but the difference is that they normalize the relationship with U.S. government, right? The difference between that. So I guess the Kim Jong-un will have to see, maybe if I want to go some overseas, have some big event, maybe I have some go there, do some other things, not only the political things, see the benchmark, how they did it, and you can get some messages and there's some lessons there.
Yeah, it seemed as though that was kind of the point President Trump was trying to make by inviting him to Vietnam, showing Kim Jong-un that this was once a a communist country, but now look at the progress that has been made. Now they have loosened up their system somewhat. If you're just tuning in, you are tuned into our special coverage of the ASEAN ROK Commemorative Summit, celebrating 30 very impressive years of relations between the two sides. We've just watched President Moon give a keynote address at the CEO Summit. That's going to be going on throughout the day. We also are awaiting the start of the ASEAN ROK Culture Innovation Summit. So let's bring Jion back in to talk a bit more about what we can expect about that. But first, I believe we're already starting to hear some updates coming out from what's happening in Busan right now.
Right. We're live feeding right now.
Well, there's the man himself, President Moon Jae-in, quickly making his way to the start of the Culture Innovation Summit. We'll get back to Jion in just a moment. In the meantime, he's just taking a seat. Once we have speakers come up to the podium, we'll be passing it over to our translator, Kim Hyo-sun, who will do a wonderful job as always. But quickly, just some news we are hearing coming out of the ASEAN Summit already, Jion, while we wait for this.
But before I talk about the ASEAN, we should mention about the venue, how he moves into one CEO summit and then he moves into the culture center. The Bexco this summit event, it's a boost for Busan in terms of we can hold these commemorative summits, inviting the leaders, important leaders for Korea and potential leading trading partners, and have these consecutive summits held side by side, inviting one of the most important leaders, innovators in.
It's also nice to see as well.
Industry.
Yeah, it's also nice to see that it isn't just Seoul that hosts these big events.
Right.
It's nice to see Busan holding it. Bexco is a very capable venue for holding an event of this importance. As we listen to one of the MCs there, we'll just wait until the president comes up and says a few words. But if you've ever been to COEX Convention Center in Seoul, you'll know Bexco is kind of along the same kind of lines as that.
I just saw Pan Seo sitting next to
CEO
President Moon.
of Big Hit Entertainment. Wow, he's risen fast up the ranks to have such a VVIP spot. But let's pass it over now to our translator as we take in the speech.
존경하는 태국
Honorable Prime Minister Prayut from Thailand, Prime Minister Thongloun Sisulit from Laos, and Madame Aung San Suu Kyi from Myanmar. Korea is just entering its winter season. In the past, East Asia has boosted marine exchanges, taking advantages of the winds of each season. And this specific season was when Northeast Asia was reaching out towards Southeast Asia. Just like Busan is a gateway towards Southeast Asia today, and as our ancestors have did, I welcome all of you to the Korea-ASEAN Culture Innovation Forum. During the past 2 years, I visited all 10 ASEAN countries, and I've witnessed harmony of various ethnicities, language, religions, and cultures. I was able to feel with my skin the inclusion and resilience of your culture and arts. Like ASEAN has transformed the history of global dining and trade with its various spices, the colors of 10 great ASEAN countries are transforming our K culture. And ASEAN's contents market grows at an annual rate of 8%, entailing the hopes and visions for the future generations. ASEAN's culture is diverse and harmonious. As we can spread the ASEAN culture, I believe that our lives could also become more abundant. ASEAN's culture is also global and has great potential for growth. In 1978, Philippine singer Freddie Aguilar's song that was sung in Tagalog language has been loved by everyone around the world, including Koreans. And Thailand's director Appi Chapong has also won the Cannes Movie Award in 2010, showcasing to the world Asia's competence in cinema. Ladies and gentlemen, when ASEAN meets Korea, ASEAN's culture can become global culture. Today, I propose that we can move beyond K-culture towards ASEAN culture. Based on Korean Wave, which began in the 1990s, South Korea now stands at the top 7th country when it comes to contents powerhouse. Our exports of cultural contents has increased and grew at an average of 16% annually for the past 5 years and established $10 billion in exports last year. Korean Wave was first began here in Asia. You were the first who sympathized with our contents, and based on this support, we were able to spread to the global arena. And the cultural content is one of the most prospective growth industry in the world. And based on the same cultural identity, Korea will become ASEAN's new partner when it comes to culture contents. And the Culture Innovation Forum, which is held inside lines of the Korea-ASEAN Special Summit, will be held regularly from next year. We will together seek ways to enter into each of other markets with other cultural markets, and we will expand our level of cooperation and friendship. Utilizing our Korea-ASEAN Center, Asia Cultural Complex, and the only ASEAN Culture Center abroad, we will continue two-way cultural exchange. We will also exert our full efforts to enhance the diversity and creativity of our culture. We will establish an institution which could promote the film industry's film cooperation of Korea and ASEAN. And we will also carry out future campaign with arts, and based on which we will expand the level of cooperation on culture and arts education for our teenagers. ASEAN Korea values people, and we have seek peace and inclusive innovation. And the way towards sustainable world is also in the culture of Asia. We sincerely hope that our culture cooperation can make new economic value and become a new dynamic in ushering in a new era. Thank you very much for his wonderful speech. Please give him another big round of your hands.
call me artist, can't call me idol. 아니 뭐 좀 다른 뭐라 해도 I don't care.
시대 기조 발제를 해주실
have
빅히트
first keynote
엔터테인먼트의
speech,
방시혁 대표를
CEO
무대로
Bang Si-hyuk
모시겠습니다.
of Big
여러분,
Hit
큰
Entertainment.
박수로 환영해
Please
주시기
give him a
바랍니다.
big hand as he enters the podium. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Bang Si-hyuk, CEO of Big Hit Entertainment and music producer. I'm honored to be standing in front of distinguished guests from many countries. I'm also very delighted to be addressing distinguished guests from ASEAN who show great love for our Big Hit contents. I hope today can serve as a platform for exchange of abundant cultural inspirations and visions. Today, I would like to talk about the vision of cultural contents as ASEAN's growth engine in today's era of Fourth Industrial Revolution. But I would also like to share with you my experience and thoughts as content producer. We are living in an era of Fourth Industrial Revolution. We call this an era where technology changes the world, people, and lifestyle. This is true, however, we do not possess this technology as its entirety. Only when we have outstanding contents made through such technology can we acknowledge and applaud the existence of such wonderful technology. In my opinion, the best example would be the Live Aid performance. In 1985, under the slogan of Feed the World, the top artists of the era gathered at Wembley Stadium in the UK. It was to let the world know of the severe famine that Africa was suffering and to extend help to them. The relay performance that was carried out for nearly 10 hours was live broadcast around 100 countries through satellite. Over 1.9 billion people watched the show worldwide, and up until now, it's noted as the world's largest real-time satellite broadcast in history. The Live Aid performance delivered the tragedies that are witnessed in today's world to all corners of the world, and it has spread the love for mankind through music. All this would not have been possible were it not for satellite. Live Aid has proved the value of live broadcast technology through satellite. And a long time has passed since. The experience of global citizens watching the same performance at the same time has been transformed now to one where we communicate real-time with anyone around the world in our palms through various channels. We exchange the same contents, sensations, and enthusiasm. And through that very technology, BTS, which began from a small production company here in a country in Eastern Asia, has resonated the world. Global audiences have become fanatical about the music videos where Korean singers sing in Korean language and dance. Globally, the lyrics, dialogues, messages of BTS are translated and shared worldwide, and which has made BTS into a Beatles of the YouTube era and a hero of the periphery. Conversely, the success of BTS has proved the existence, value, and spread power of YouTube technology. Now I believe we can raise this question. Out of the many performances, why was it Live Aid? And why is it BTS out of many contemporary artists that can prove such technologies? The answer is simple. It was because they were good contents. Live Aid and BTS are from different times and have different kinds of contents, but they are both good contents. It is because they sometimes carry provocative, bold messages towards the era and the generation. Actually, all contents are a form of utterance and expression. What's important is that how universal and resonance can it bring. When we first see certain contents, most of the times we are attracted by its uniqueness and quality. It is like an immense graphic performance that has never been in an extraordinary story. But as we delve into such contents, at each moment we feel the characters, stories, and performances begin to talk to us. This is the very moment when we can listen to the utterance of the creator. Then we feel that, oh, this is my story. This is my stories, the story of my generation, our own generation. Then this is when we look at ourselves. And this is the very moment where a single content becomes good content. It is when something special transforms into something universal and moves our spirit. On top of this, there is one more crucial factor. Unlike the past, in today's era, simply with the universality of the utterance, contents cannot become a good one. Such utterance needs to be universal, but at the same time, it must bring about the enthusiasm of a community with unique tastes. Universality and a community with unique tastes, they might sound like two ends of a spectrum. The world was complex and diverse in the past, but now the level of the diversity is even more significant in today's world. And garnering all of their eyes at the same time with a simple contents which can attract everyone is actually difficult in today's society. In other words, it's not easy for us to witness another Michael Jackson or Madonna who can garner the attention of all global citizens at the same time. But this doesn't mean that we cannot create a content that can bring about global enthusiasm, but we need a different methodology. This is about making our existence be known to the people with a similar taste through immense enthusiasm and thus achieving great success. For example, we can look at the film Avengers. In the past, such hero movies based on comic was a genre only for a small group of people with unique tastes. However, based on their enthusiasm, it has garnered global attention and has become extremely successful. Likewise, today's good contents must be an universal utterance that can be sympathized by all at their own stories, and at the same time, they must be a unique utterance for a smaller community of people with similar tastes. In short, good content is a message that must be delivered to the contemporary era. And making a transition, on my way here to Busan, I looked at the ocean from my car window, and I began to think about ASEAN. They are geographically close nations that we can fly in just 6 to 7 hours. They are countries connected through the sea and through history. We all had to experience a painful past as our level of technology fell short of others relatively. In the process of overcoming from such wounds, we went through difficult modern history as well. Even at this very moment, we are exerting our full efforts to develop our technological capability. In some aspects, we have had great achievements, but there is still a long way to go. We still have many hurdles. Against this backdrop, what should we do? I believe the answer is clear. It could be very difficult for us to immediately come up with something that can lead the technological culture. However, it's different. When we talk about contents, we can make it happen with a relatively shorter time of concentration. Moreover, we have the possibility to make such contents. As I told you earlier, good contents is an utterance that must be delivered to the era. In this context, we have different culture and historical background. Compared to other countries who led the technological culture, we can have a different perspective on people, on the world, and we can have different stories. The fact that we are in the midst of such history means that there is universality and contemporaneity that only we can find. Good contents is that it begins from the understanding of the world's various tastes and enthusiasm. Globally, there are things that only we can understand. Instead of running straight ahead, we can delve deep into the layers of the world. By doing so, we can create contents in the color and form that can bring about enthusiasm of a minority. And conversely, such color can be reached to all. And such utterance is left in the hands of the people who know, feel their minds and body, the characteristics of good contents, people who can pick out the messages from the world and extract colors, people who can talk to the world and bring out responses. Investing in such people is investing in tomorrow's cultural contents. As Live Aid has shown the the existence of live broadcast technology 34 years ago through satellite, and as BTS proved the spreading power of YouTube technology, we can make contents that entail our own message and understanding. By doing so, we need to invest in people who will prove the value of existence of the new technologies going forward. Thank you very much for your attention. That was a very impressive first keynote speech by CEO Bang Si-hyuk. Please give him a big hand once again.
나는 이 마법을 보러 여기까지 왔다. 이야기는 여기서부터 시작한다.
हम सबका लाइफ एक कहानी है.
수행자죠. 세프가 아닙니다.
What is human? An ability to reason, to imagine, to love, or grieve. If so, we are more human than any human ever will be.
And the second keynote speech is by the founder and the CEO of Netflix. Please give him a big hand as he comes up to the podium.
Mr. President, Your Excellencies, and esteemed guests, it's a great honor to be in Korea here this morning, celebrating the 30th anniversary of ASEAN-ROK partnership, a partnership created to promote the exchange of culture across the region. All of us in this room today share a deep love of art, culture, and storytelling. We remember the stories our parents told us as children, tales that helped us to learn about culture and start to make sense of life, and how today, even though we're older and allegedly wiser, stories still help us to build empathy and develop a shared understanding of the world. We've also seen how technology, something that's often seen as cold and clinical, enables art and culture to spread beyond the people or countries who created it. From the printing press and motion picture to radio, TV, and most recently, the internet. In fact, it's this melding of art and technology that got Netflix started over 20 years ago. We began life as a DVD by mail company, serving the US audience with mostly American films. When I started at Netflix, it was mailing envelopes, and today it's streaming. Because in 2007, as broadband speeds continued to increase, we switched to streaming, enabling customers around the world to watch shows on their own schedule. People in Korea and Southeast Asia took to streaming quicker than we ever imagined because it was convenient. They loved being in control of what and when they watched. And today, that control is as important as ever. For example, we make an entire TV series available at launch, so people can watch as little or as much as they want. At once, with no ads to interrupt them. We also provide controls for parents to decide what their children can watch. Since that initial reinvention, from DVDs to the internet, we've had to reinvent ourselves twice over. In 2013, we started to make our own shows, like House of Cards. And then in 2016, we went from being in just 60 countries to serving audiences in 190 countries around the world. As a result of these changes, Netflix has developed very differently than most other TV companies or studios. US entertainment companies, for example, have traditionally viewed international as an export material for American content. But in Netflix, we've seen how great stories can come from anywhere and be loved everywhere. Take the Korean drama Kingdom. I hope you've all have had a chance to watch it. This series was made in Korea by Korean creators, starring Korean talent, and it's being watched by audiences all around the world, from Asia to Europe and the Americas. Okja, one of our first ever films made by director Bong, around the world now being enjoyed. The Night Comes For Us from Indonesia. The movie Hai Fung that has been chosen as Vietnam's official submission to the 2020 Oscars. Since launching here 3 years ago, we've invested in over 160 Netflix originals from the region, almost all of which have been commissioned by local content executives who know the culture and speak the languages. In total, our shows have been filmed in 19 cities in Korea and 12 more across Southeast Asia, including Bangkok, Penang, Bali, and we've created work for over 8,000 producers, cast, and crew. A recent survey of 56,000 ASEAN young people found that over half of them felt the need to upgrade their skills. And this is an area where Netflix is contributing. For example, we're holding workshops in Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand that help develop local writing and filming skills. These workshops are run with partners, such as the Korean Animation Producers Association, Thailand's National Federation of Motion Pictures, and Malaysia's Digital Economy Corporation. As we grow, it's important that we work flexibly with local creators. In some cases, that will mean producing our shows like Love Alarm from Korea, The Stranded, our first series from Thailand, or Ghost Bride from Malaysia. In others is licensing films or series from partners, including local broadcasters like KBS, MBC, and SBS in Korea, MediaCorp in Singapore, ABS-CBN in the Philippines, Media Prima in Malaysia, and GMM Grammy in Thailand. Our content providers, like CJ E&M in Korea, also help us. We do co-productions where we help fund the cost of a show and then share in the distribution. Our goal with every show we commission, whether it's Korean, Thai, or American, is to ensure that the creator has the freedom to tell their story. Authentic artistic expression is the key, and it is this authenticity that audiences love. Just this morning, we announced a major partnership with JTBC in Korea. Netflix will show a slate of JTBC stories to audiences around the world. And that's where our technology comes in. Because once we have authentic original story, we need to get it in front of people wherever they live and in whatever language they speak. We work with partners across the region, for example, pay TV providers, CJ Hello and LGU+, internet service providers like AIS, and device manufacturers such as Samsung and LG to ensure that Netflix works, whether it's on a smart TV or smartphone, and that it works the best possible quality possible, whether it's on a fiber connection or a slower mobile signal. To ensure that shows which are made in Korea or Thailand or Malaysia can be watched by the world, we need to speak everybody's language. Subtitles and dubbing are critical to making that connection. To date, we sub and dub in 30 languages, including Korean, Thai, Bahasa, and 2 months ago, we launched Vietnamese. Subbing and dubbing on Netflix is generally good, but we want to be great, and there's more we can do. The region is one of the great centers of art and entertainment in the world. Your creative and engineering talent is second to none. You are pioneering new kinds of stories and new technologies, which we are enjoying and benefiting from. As Korea's K-Wave has led the way for this region across the entertainment and music industries, as well as fashion and cooking, we see K-fans everywhere, from the US to Brazil and France. Viewers and listeners, fashionistas and cooks can now discover the depth and diversity of Korean culture on Netflix. We're excited to be part of this K-Wave and the broader ASEAN wave that everybody here is working to build, ensuring that more cultures are reflected on screen, building greater empathy between countries, and increasing our understanding of the world through storytelling. Thank you for having me here today, and Netflix looks forward to being part of the creative ecosystem for a long time. Thank you.
네, 리딩 헤이스팅스 대표님께 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
Okay, so I know a lot more about Netflix now than I thought I ever would. But we've been watching the start of the ASEAN ROK Culture Innovation Summit in Busan. We had a brief speech from President Moon Jae-in, and then from the CEOs of Big Hit Entertainment and Netflix, of course. We are going to have to wrap it up now. Big thanks to Junseong, adjunct professor at Yonsei University's Graduate School of International Studies. Thank you for sharing your insights today. And Kim Ji-yeon, of course, thank you very much for coming in and telling us what you've been researching for us as well. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for now. I'll be back by myself, I believe, for more news at noon Korea time, and that's in around 10 minutes from now. So until then, goodbye.
Cẩn thận nhá.